Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that efforts to secure a ceasefire in Gaza are underway. Trump says he will send the EU a tariff letter in the coming days. Wildfires in Marseilles, France, injure 110 people. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says a ceasefire deal in Gaza is in the works. His comments came during a visit to Washington, where he met with US President Donald Trump.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that efforts are underway toward reaching a ceasefire deal in Gaza. His statement came during a visit to Washington, where he met with US President Donald Trump and other top officials. Netanyahu reaffirmed his commitment to eliminating Hamas and securing the release of the remaining Israeli hostages.
We have still to finish the job in Gaza, release all our hostages, eliminate and destroy Hamas's military and governance capabilities, because Gaza must have a different future for our sake, for everyone's sake. And no country will settle for less. We certainly will not.
The Israeli PM also spoke of the peace process and the hurdles preventing the completion of the ceasefire deal.
Well, we're certainly working on it. I can't speak in advance. You need several parties to tango. It's not even two here. But we're working on it diligently as we speak. In fact, on the way over here and on the way from here. We're not going to let up. We have a goal. We intend to achieve that goal.
Meanwhile, US Special Envoy for Peace Missions Steve Witkoff, who also met with Netanyahu, expressed hope that a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza would be reached by the end of the week, following progress in proximity talks. Witkoff said the proposed agreement includes the release of 10 living hostages and the remains of 9 deceased, expressing optimism that this could pave the way for lasting peace in the region. This marks Netanyahu's third visit to Washington since Trump returned to office earlier this year. Trump has repeatedly spoken about ending the war in the Middle East and assuming administrative control over the Gaza Strip to redevelop the territory, a plan that Netanyahu has supported.
I think President Trump had a brilliant vision. It's called free choice. You know, if people want to stay, they can stay. But if they want to leave, they should be able to leave. It shouldn't be a prison. It should be an open place and give people a free choice. We're working with the United States very closely about finding countries that will seek to realize what they always say, that they want to give the Palestinians a better future.
Netanyahu's visit to Washington underscores his strong ties with Trump, as both the United States and Israel continue to share a common stance on tensions in the Middle East.
US President Donald Trump says the United States is likely just days away from sending a formal letter to the European Union outlining potential tariffs. The announcement follows ongoing trade discussions between Washington and Brussels. The announcement follows a broader plan targeting 14 countries with tariffs ranging from 25 to 40%. While the EU hasn't received formal notice, sources say it's seeking possible exemptions from a proposed 10% baseline. The measures will take effect on the 1st of August.
European Union judges. And they ruled they take Israel is very unfair having to do with this trial. I think, well, the European Union has been speaking to us, Ursula and the whole group, and they've been very nice. They treated us very badly until recently. Now they're treating us very nicely. It's like a different world, actually. They've treated us very badly. They were among the toughest to deal with. Actually, in many respects, they were much worse than China. Look at what they do to our companies. They sue Apple. They sue Google. $17 billion they got from Apple on a lawsuit that they didn't have a case. They have, judges that are European Union judges. And they ruled, they take so much money away from our country in terms of that, in terms of other things that they do. They're very tough. But now they're being very nice to us, and we'll see what happens. We're probably 2 days off from sending them a letter. We are talking to them. I just want you to know, a letter means
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is facing a no-confidence vote this week. The move was initiated by Romanian MEP Georgia Piperea, who raised concerns over undisclosed text messages exchanged with a pharmaceutical CEO during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Romanian member of the European Parliament Georgia Piperea has gathered 72 signatures to trigger a no-confidence vote against European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen this week. By doing so, Piperea made von der Leyen the first Commission President in more than a decade to face such a censure. "I have succeeded in opening a Pandora's box," the Romanian lawyer told The Telegraph, predicting her days are numbered.
Thank you.
The motion centres on undisclosed text exchanges between von der Leyen and Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla, linked to the EU's €35 billion COVID-19 vaccine deal, a controversy dubbed Pfizergate. An EU court ruled in May that the Commission wrongly blocked access to these messages, fueling criticism over transparency. The vote, scheduled for Thursday in Strasbourg, comes amid months of accusations that von der Leyen bypassed parliamentary oversight on major initiatives, including a €150 billion defence loan programme. Piperea, who joined the European Parliament last year, accuses her of breaking the rule of law by sidelining member states and members of the European Parliament. Although the motion is unlikely to pass due to strong pro-EU party support, Piperea calls it the beginning of the end and predicts she could resign by October amid rising dissent within her own European People's Party. Ahead of the debate, von der Leyen appeared with all 26 EU commissioners to show unity, sending a clear message. A vote against her could bring down the entire Commission and plunge the EU into a major institutional crisis during ongoing trade talks with the US and conflict in Eastern Europe. Her key ally, EPP leader Manfred Weber, warned against falling into the trap of this motion, which was set up by the pro-Putin fringes in the European Parliament, urging unity to avoid destabilising the EU, especially as von der Leyen negotiates a trade deal impacting 450 million Europeans. Von der Leyen defended her actions in Parliament, saying, "It is no secret that I was in contact with leading vaccine producers and consulted top epidemiologists and virologists to overcome the crisis." Critics, however, argue the secrecy undermines trust in the Commission's transparency and accountability. This controversy reflects deeper issues within the EU's complex system, described by some as a constitutional Frankenstein. Power is split between the European Commission in Brussels and the 27 member states, with multiple bodies like the European Council and the Council of the European Union, each playing different roles. Adding to the complexity, 20 countries use the euro while 7 maintain their own currencies, leaving many Europeans confused. Surveys show nearly half of EU citizens struggle to understand how the institutions work, contributing to slow decision-making and fragmented foreign policy. The historian Brendan Sims, head of Cambridge University's Centre for Geopolitics, has proposed remaking the EU on Anglo-American constitutional principles. He envisions a United States of Europe with a president elected by universal suffrage. Europe has had opportunities to form such a federation before. After World War II, 6 countries attempted to create a European political community with a common parliament and army, but French concerns over sovereignty halted the project. Again in 1993, German Chancellor Helmut Kohl pushed for a United States of Europe, but French opposition led the EU to remain primarily an economic union with limited political power. Kohl warned this arrangement might not last. As the EU faces both internal and external challenges, the debate over its future is more relevant than ever.
A major wildfire on the Mediterranean coast in France has triggered a large-scale emergency response. As flames reach the outskirts of Marseilles, authorities scrambled to protect homes and critical infrastructure.
A fast-moving wildfire has scorched the outskirts of Marseilles, France's second-largest city, injuring more than 110 people and forcing hundreds to evacuate the area. The blaze, fanned by strong winds reaching up to 70 kilometers per hour, ignited after a car caught fire on a nearby motorway. Thick smoke loomed over residential areas, darkening the skies and reaching as far as the city centre. Authorities issued emergency phone alerts advising residents to stay indoors and seal their homes with damp cloths. The nearby airport was temporarily closed due to the hazardous conditions. By Tuesday evening, officials said the fire was considered under control, though still burning, and warned that forecasted winds could reignite its advance. Over 800 firefighters, backed by helicopters and aircraft, have been deployed to the scene. Regional Prefect Georges François Leclerc confirmed the fire had consumed around 700 hectares, or 1,730 acres.
La situation n'est pas figée.
The situation has not been stopped. It has not been stabilized, but it has been brought under control. Why? Firstly, because we have deployed a great deal of forces. Second, because although several firefighters have been injured, 9, only 1 has had to be evacuated. Thirdly, residents are staying at home. I ask the people of Marseille to stay in their homes.
Confiné. Et je demande à la population de Marseille.
At least 400 residents have been evacuated, with 20 buildings partially damaged.
Yes, it was pretty impressive with the smell, itchy eyes. It wasn't very pleasant.
The problem is that since the smoke is drifting southwards, it covers the whole city, and around 4 p.m. they asked us to go home because people were having difficulty breathing, so that's what I did.
However, no fatalities have been reported, and authorities say hundreds of homes have been saved thanks to the massive emergency response.
Deadly flash floods have claimed more than 100 lives in Texas, with more than 170 still missing in one county alone. New Mexico is also under emergency conditions as search and rescue operations continue across both states.
4 days after catastrophic flash floods swept through parts of Texas and New Mexico, the death toll has risen to at least 111, with over 172 people still missing in a single Texas county. The hardest hit region is Kerrville, where 94 of the fatalities were recorded. Officials say hopes are fading for finding more survivors alive. Governor Greg Abbott confirmed the grim numbers at a news conference on Tuesday, calling the situation devastating. Governor promised that search and rescue teams will not stop until every missing person is accounted for. He also warned that more names may be added to the list of the missing in the coming days.
There's nothing more important on our hearts and minds than the people of this community, especially those who are still lost. I told them what we were doing, not just today, but what we are going to be doing for the days, weeks, and months to come. This is what they needed to hear. They need to know Texas is in this with the people in the hill country right here. We are not leaving until this job is finished.
Kerr County alone has deployed more than 250 emergency responders, including FBI agents, Border Patrol officers, and National Guard troops. Air operations have ramped up significantly, with 13 Black Hawk helicopters, alongside Chinook helicopters and drones. Among the most heart-wrenching incidents was at Camp Mystic, a nearly century-old all-girls summer camp in Hunt, Texas. The camp confirmed that at least 27 campers and counselors lost their lives in the flooding. Rescue crews continue to clear debris and search the banks of the Guadalupe River, where many of the tragedies occurred. Meanwhile, in neighboring New Mexico, the National Weather Service declared a flash flood emergency in Ruidoso after the village's river crested at a record 20.24 feet. Emergency crews carried out more than 50 swift water rescues, pulling people from submerged homes and stranded vehicles. In response to the disaster, the village of Ruidoso has requested federal assistance. President Donald Trump, along with First Lady Melania Trump, is expected to visit the affected regions on Friday.
I'll be going down on Friday with First Lady. We'll be taking a trip, and we don't want to get in anyone's way because that's what happens. The president goes and everyone's around focused on. I don't want anyone to focus on us, but it's possible they could have somebody saved still. There's a lot of areas. It's a big area.
Experts point to a combination of factors that made the Texas disaster especially lethal, including extreme weather, the vulnerable location of many holiday homes, and the lack of early warning systems.
A fire broke out in Armenia's parliament after opposition MP Artur Sargsyan, who's facing the loss of his immunity and possible arrest, claimed that a decision on his case had already been made. He said he planned to spend time with his family before being detained. As he left the podium, a heated exchange with ruling party members quickly escalated into a physical altercation. Lawmakers were seen pushing, hitting and throwing objects at each other. This is not the first such incident in the chamber. In Georgia, tensions are rising ahead of local elections. The Speaker of Parliament is accusing EU-funded NGOs of interference, while other officials are trying to reassure international partners. Nini Nikolashvili has more from Tbilisi.
Organizations funded by the EU embassy are preparing to disrupt Georgia's local elections. This is the fact. With this direct accusation, the Speaker of Parliament, Shala Papashvili, sent shockwaves through the political landscape. According to him, the EU ambassador is sanctioning funding of groups that are allegedly working to undermine Georgia's electoral process. Papashvili says that the full responsibility will lie with the donors and vows that the ruling party will publicly name and expose both organizations and funders if necessary. His words: let's not let the Brussels bureaucracy destroy the EU's reputation. But just hours later, a very different message came from another corner of the government. The first deputy foreign minister, George Zurabashvili, and the head of anti-corruption bureau, President Kokashvili, met with foreign diplomats to ensure them that the controversial FARA and grants law pose no direct threat to NGOs' activities. They say that the new regulations aim to enhance transparency and are based on democratic standards. Kokashvili was clear: there are no circumstances today that threaten NGO activity. He also emphasized ongoing dialogue with international partners, describing the meeting as the open, detailed and constructive. So while the top officials accuse the EU funding organizations of plotting to interfere the elections, others insist that the communication and cooperation with the international community remains solid and lawful NGO activity is not at risk. This is Nini Nikolashvili reporting from Tbilisi, A News.
President of Kyrgyzstan Sadir Japarov arrived in Dushanbe for an official visit, where he met with the President of Tajikistan, Emomali Rahmon, to discuss strengthening bilateral cooperation. Their talks focused on social infrastructure, multilateral coordination and border community issues. Rahmon praised progress on border delimitation and growing trade and security ties. Japarov thanked Tajikistan for its hospitality and stressed the importance of the border agreement for regional stability. China remains the largest investor in Tajikistan's economy during the last 18 years. Beijing has invested more than $5 billion in the Central Asian Republic. These figures were announced in Dushanbe during a session of the country's lower house of parliament. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimruzina has the details.
Since 2007, Chinese investments in Tajikistan have totaled more than $5.1 billion, according to Sultan Rahim Zoda, chairman of the State Committee on Investments and State Property Management. He made the announcement during a session of Tajikistan's parliament. On the same day, lawmakers ratified a bilateral agreement between Tajikistan and China on the mutual protection and promotion of investments. The agreement was signed last year during Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Dushanbe and provides legal safeguards for investors from both countries. Of the total Chinese investment, $2.9 billion came in the form of direct investments, while the remaining $2.2 billion were other types of capital inflows. Rahimzadeh highlighted key sectors of Chinese involvement, including mining and processing industries, geological exploration, telecommunications, construction and equipment supply. Currently, more than 700 enterprises in Tajikistan operate with Chinese capital. China also leads in Tajikistan's natural resource extraction. According to official data, 84% of the country's gold production comes from 2 Chinese companies. Meanwhile, Tajikistan's sovereign debt to China is estimated at approximately $900 million. China became Tajikistan's largest foreign investor in 2014, overtaking Russia. The decline in Russian investment continued last year, while the United Kingdom rose to 3rd place among top foreign investors. And today, Tajikistan's main international investment partners are China, the United Kingdom, Russia, and Kazakhstan. Fariza Kalimurzana, A News, in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
The World Food Programme has warned that 10 million Afghans face hunger this summer, but only a fraction can get help due to their funding cuts. Afghanistan's government is calling for sanctions to be lifted and for greater investment to support long-term recovery. Tamim Bahis reports from Kabul.
The World Food Programme has issued a stark warning about the deepening humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. According to the agency, 10 million people across the country are facing hunger this summer. But due to a severe lack of funding, only 1 million of them can be reached with food assistance. This alarming shortfall comes as Afghanistan tops the list of countries facing urgent humanitarian concerns. Despite the growing needs, international aid has been significantly reduced. As a result, millions of families are struggling with food shortages, unemployment, and rising poverty. The Ministry of Economy says it has launched new programs aimed at tackling poverty and unemployment. Officials believe that long-term solutions lie in economic recovery, not just emergency aid. They are calling for the lifting of sanctions and more international investment in projects that create jobs and increase families' ability to provide for themselves. Key drivers of the crisis include widespread unemployment, reduced foreign assistance, recent natural disasters, and limited access to health and education services. These issues have not only worsened hunger, but have also forced many families to flee their homes and send their children into hard labor. As the crisis unfolds, Afghan families continue to wait for sustained international support and real steps toward recovery. Tamim Bahis reporting for A News in Kabul, Afghanistan.
And this was the world news from Baku for now. Stay tuned to A News for more updates throughout the day.